about Dana. I'm so excited to have you on and learn more about you. I want to just to start you off by giving you the chance to introduce yourself to all the women and all the listeners out there. Kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've been doing and what you've been up to lately.
Yeah, hi. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on here. I really appreciate it. So my name is Dana Suchow. I run the blog, Do the Hotpants. I also started the hashtag MyBodyStory that's been used by thousands of men and women across the world. But basically, what started off as a fashion blog. And then through getting an eating disorder and sort of trying to navigate how fashion and body positivity went together, I ended up creating Do the Hotpants, which is now just a body positive hub and a body positive website that I feature other women's body stories actually on it. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to do like social media campaigns and definitely trying to spark fire and bring people together.
Mm-hmm. And I think you're so good at the voice that you have. You're super passionate about everything
yeah.
you talk about on Instagram, and it totally comes across, which I love.
I'm super passionate and I'm super angry. And I think that I think it's hard not to be angry right now as a woman. You know, sometimes I talk to people and it's like they just go about their day to day. And I think, you know, there's this phrase that it's like, once you're woke, you can't go back to sleep. Mm-hmm. And I think that a lot of women walk around with like a certain heaviness that they carry with them day to day, like a certain amount of anger, because we wish we could go back to sleep and we wish we could just go back to the times when we didn't realize sexism and racism and violence against women. But yeah, I mean, now that I have that and I'm so angry that I'm trying to put my passions into things that will help others and help myself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's kind of like you said, it's like ignorance is bliss in a certain way, but now that you are awake, it's like you're channeling and funneling everything in a positive way.
Absolutely. I mean, ignorance really is bliss. You know, it's funny though, because even when I was ignorant, I still was suffering. I just didn't realize, you know, where I was suffering from. I didn't realize like that patriarchy really was affecting me and my body image, you know, issues. And, you know, when I would go into stores, that's why I felt bad about myself and my looks. But now that I know, it's like walking around is just so infuriating sometimes. So I feel like my job now is just to wake people up and to find the best way for us all to get together and work towards a common, you know, a common good or fight a common evil. So.
And I love that. How did it all start for you?
You know, I think I've always just been passionate. I think I've always kind of been an angry person. You know, I was called a bitch a lot when I was younger, which I now embrace, but it's been a big insecurity of mine for a long time of like, ooh, I'm being a bitch or I'm being too forceful or too angry. But I think because I have this sort of attitude about it, that getting into body positivity and kind of coming to terms with my eating disorder wasn't as difficult for me as I think it is for some other women. But basically, you know, I started a fashion blog about 5 years ago, Do the Hotpants, and I was dating a fashion photographer at the time. It seemed like the perfect match. You know, I would go to fashion weeks with him. You know, I had these great photographs. I was like, I want to become a famous fashion blogger. And at the time, I was also dealing with bulimia. But it was not manageable, but it was like my own secret. And I felt like I could still work and I could still do the blog and I could still do all these things while secretly exercising, you know, 5 hours a day. But as I was doing the blog and as the pressure to be beautiful and to be thin, to be perfect, to have this online image, you know, kept growing, it became harder and harder to kind of hide my eating disorder. And it also started kind of adding to it, you know, like the pressures of all of these things really made it feel like not only was I like living this dichotomy, but it also felt like I was going to explode. So I ended up slowly coming to terms with my readers, you know, little by little, I would start adding body positivity into the writing or into the things that I was doing. And I think what kind of catapulted really into body positivity was I released unphotoshopped versions of photos that had been previously photoshopped. I called it, it was an article and I called it Photos I Wish I Didn't Photoshop. and it went completely viral. And it basically was just photos that I had previously done where, I was covering my acne or my under eye bags, or I was slimming my waist and my hips a little bit. And it went, like I said, it went completely viral. It was picked up by BuzzFeed, by Elle, by Yahoo, by ABC News. It was really overwhelming.
How long ago was that?
That was about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was about 2 years ago. And that really was like, once that happened and once it really started connecting and resonating with people, I was like, I know my true calling. Mm-hmm. And I have, I've done a lot of work. Like, I really think that like I'm over the eating disorder. I do have, certain episodes where I'm like, I feel like I'm regressing, but it's always 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Mm-hmm. And I also, now I share everything with my readers. I don't hide anything. I'm not a fashion blog anymore. I'm very uncomfortable sharing fashion or beautiful photos of myself online because I feel that they make other people feel bad about themselves. And so I really have to kind of be careful about this safe space that I've created now for men and women. Mm-hmm. And that I have to stay true to that. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the story in a nutshell.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of, here and there and like ups and downs that have happened between, but basically it was started as a fashion blog, came to terms with my eating disorder, released those photos. And since then I've really kind of created this online community of people who feel that my blog is a safe space.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it's amazing how you've transformed over the years. Absolutely.
Yeah.
How did the bulimia start? Like, how did that happen for you?
So it's interesting because I like to think that my body image issues all started when I moved to New York 7 years ago. I moved to New York. I didn't have really any friends. My family was all in California. I had just gone through a breakup. I moved in the dead of winter. It was really like a traumatic move for me. Mm-hmm. I did it just because, I had a friend that moved here and it was like, I was ready for some change. But when I moved to New York, I think because I didn't have that support system, I started eating a lot and I started becoming really obsessed with my weight. And for a while, I even thought I was pregnant and that was why I was eating a lot. I didn't know what was going on. And then after 6 months of me putting on a tremendous amount of weight, I started looking into eating disorders and I realized that I had bulimia or binge eating disorder and I had no idea about any of that stuff before. Mm-hmm. So it was all totally new. I decided to find a therapist after a year of being in New York, but it was a lot of like figuring out what was going on with my body, what was going on with my mind. So I'd like to say that that's when it started, mm-hmm. but it's not actually. Mm-hmm. And over the years, as I've done more work, when I was at my worst of my eating disorder, I kept being like, oh, I just wish I was the weight I was a couple years ago, or I wish I could just deal with food the way I was a couple years ago. And while I didn't have issues with food per se, I still hated my body. I had a deep, deep hatred for my body, and it actually took its life in my skin was what I hated. I've always been self-conscious of my acne. I grew up with acne. My mom had really, really bad acne. She had cystic acne growing up. So she was really bullied and made fun of when she grew up. So that fear of being scared that I was going to be cast as other or made fun of followed me throughout my life. Having my skin put under a microscope by my family and by a dermatologist throughout growing up, really affected my self-esteem and the way I viewed myself in society. So while the bulimia happened and the eating disorder happened 7 years ago when I moved to New York, a lot of other things were building blocks to get to that point. Mm-hmm. And that's why, while I talk about body positivity, while I talk about body positivity as well as eating disorder awareness, I think we have to view it all in a kind of higher pyramid that's under kind of the umbrella of feminism. Because underneath feminism, we have all of these things. And anytime you start to hypersexualize women, you shame women for their bodies, you tell Black women that they're not good enough, you tell fat women that they're not good enough. While that is body shaming, that all has to do with patriarchy and marketing and living in a society that is gaining financial, benefits off of us hating each other. Mm-hmm. So that's like the direction I've moved towards. Like I was really focusing on eating disorders, but now I'm like, the umbrella that it's under is so overwhelming that I think there's a lot we need to attack, because attacking just eating disorders is kind of like a Band-Aid on the bigger issue.
Yeah, the bigger picture going on for sure.
Exactly.
What was it like? When did you start fashion blogging and doing that within this whole story of things?
Yeah, so I first started the blog as a fashion blog, and I started, that was like 5 years ago. Yeah, maybe.
You froze.
It was the beginning of 2012, 2011. But yeah, it was a while ago. It was a while ago. And I wasn't fashion blogging for very long. Actually, you know what? Since I started the blog, I was extremely insecure about my body. I can look back at like the very first fashion posts and be like, wow, I hated myself. Or wow, I ran 5 miles before this post because I was terrified of how I looked in front of the camera. You know, and that's what's sad about it too, is, you know, that I go through the blog, and while there's a lot of great stuff on it, a lot of it's really sad to me too. And a lot of it is like, you know, steeped in trauma and steeped in really negative thoughts about myself, because it really reminds me of a time that I was really out of control and that I really had so much self-hatred. You know, I would eat food, and like I would eat a bag of crackers and I would throw them in the trash, and I would have to spray them with 409 so I wouldn't go back and eat them. I mean, and these are just memories that going through the blog invokes. But it's also healthy for me too, to like keep it up and remember that. But it's interesting because you know, in the post, I'll be like, oh my God, I had the best day ever, and I'm going to go get cupcakes and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh man, if only my readers knew just what I was going through. But I'm glad I was able to come to terms with it and be honest now, you know?
And I think now that you are so open and vulnerable and totally honest on your Instagram, your platform has totally changed, because when you started, it wasn't necessarily the whole picture of things either, right?
Exactly. And I think, you know, if people can take away anything, it's that nothing you see is real. You know, my Instagram wasn't real. You know, I still, and I'm trying to fix it, but I still have days where I'm like, I don't feel very good, but I also don't feel like sharing it with anybody. You know, like it's very scary to put yourself out there. And I've never put myself out there and people have been like, well, this is stupid, or, you know, like she's ugly or anything. But it still is just, society tells us that we're supposed to be perfect and 100% all the time. And so whenever we are flawed or we are real, we are made to not feel good about ourselves. So it's, you know, what I'm trying to work on is for everyone to understand, like when they come to my page, that they leave knowing that nothing is real, that magazines aren't real, that billboards aren't real, that ads aren't real, that, you know, the only thing that's real is what you're experiencing right now.
And I think it must be hard, correct me if I'm wrong, is it hard for you because you have such a large following now that you feel the desire to be perfect within this scheme of imperfection and honesty and vulnerability?
Yes.
What's that like?
That's such a good point. You know, I had posted a picture, like just a fashion picture of myself a couple weeks ago, and I didn't, you know, post anything underneath being like, oh, when I took this picture, I was feeling really bad about myself. I just posted it because I was like, oh, it was like a really nice photo. And I thought it added to the aesthetic of my Instagram. And, you know, I thought the fashion looked cool. And then I started sitting there and I was like, this isn't adding anything to anyone. If anyone sees this photo, they're going to see, you know, a beautiful white woman who's thin and able-bodied, looking fashionable, and I'm not learning anything from it. And so all that people are going to do is like read it and maybe feel bad about themselves. And I was like, why did I need to post it? So I sat thinking for a day, and I was like, I think that I needed to post it because I was having a moment where I just wanted to be told that I was pretty, that I was valued, that I was, you know, my feelings were valid. Like I think I just needed some compliments. And that really made me feel like, so I've actually been thinking about that for the past couple of weeks, being like, so when I want to post a picture that's just a pretty picture, that's just a pretty selfie or something, I need to sit and think about why I want to post that. Because it's not helping my followers. And for it to be helping me, I can be doing that on my own. I can validate myself on my own. I don't need the my 13,000 followers or whatever to validate me, because they already validate me by following me and trusting me. But it's interesting because when you create a safe space like this, there are rules to it. There are rules, me as an admin, there are rules to it, and I have to respect those rules. And those rules mean that I'm learning all the time. I'm learning the correct terminology for people. I learned Latinx, and I learned why it's the X at the end. It's so that it's non-gender specific. And that a friend taught me that a couple of months ago. It's like all of these things where I have to be respectful of people, and I have to remember that as a woman with privilege, I don't know everything. And so I have to allow people a seat at the table, in this space that I've created. But it's tough. I'm a human being, and sometimes I just want to feel good, and I just want to be shallow, and I just want to be this and that. So, everyone is trying to navigate this world in the best way that they can. And there certainly are no pre-existing rules for spaces like this. But it's definitely been a learning experience on what I can do and what I can't do, and what will gain people's trust and what will make people be like, I don't know, I came for a safe space and this doesn't make me feel very safe. So it's just, I will never be 100%, but it's definitely been learning.
And I appreciate your honesty for that.
Yeah.
You said that, posting something like that, it's so easy to get the external validation. How do you find it within yourself to find your own self-worth? Like, how would you help someone through that, or how do you do it yourself?
Look, if I didn't have a therapist, I've been seeing a therapist for the last couple of years. If I didn't have a therapist, I really wouldn't be where I'm at all. There's only so many mantras you can do and meditation you can do, where I actually do think that women as a whole need someone to talk to. We need a feminist support group. We need somebody to speak to get our issues out. So while I can give people advice on what I've been doing and the things that I do, unless you're really seeking help and you're really you're doing a therapist, or you're going to a meditation group or something, I don't think that you're fully going to grasp it. But when I have the moments that I have, I do a couple of things. One is I'll have therapy and I'll speak to my therapist. Two is I'll reach out to friends and I'll just be honest with a group of friends, or with one friend, I'll have a one-on-one, we'll go get coffee, and I'll just be like, I'm not feeling great about myself. The other thing is that I share it on social media, and it really makes me feel so much better. It really, my community really validates my feelings, and they also make me feel like I'm not alone. And I think that's really the big picture, is that's the big problem about women and our body image issues, is that we all feel like we're the only ones that hate our thighs. We're the only ones that have this ugly stomach. We're the only ones with this weird nose. It's like we all hate almost everything about our bodies, and we're not alone. And it's just, becoming a part of a community. So, because I'm not perfect, it's hard for me to say, well, this is what you can do to fix yourself. But definitely finding a community where you can share your experiences and feel less alone is one of the best things that you can do. There's only so many, Pinterest positive boards that you can read, where you actually have to speak about your experience and you have to relate to someone. And I think that touches on just human nature in general, of not feeling alone, our tribal nature of feeling that we have these shared experiences and that we're in it together.
And the connections that you make on the basis of the imperfections is huge.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I was at a coffee shop the other day talking to a friend, and we were just having a body positive talk, and a girl overheard us, and she turns around, she was like, I wasn't going to say anything. I just want to tell you, I love this conversation. It turns out she was recovering from an eating disorder. Her and I met for coffee a couple weeks ago. She emailed me. It was like, just talking about it, you never know who you're going to affect or who you're going to meet. But it's incredible, because it doesn't matter who you speak to, somebody's going to relate on that level. You're going to have a connection with somebody.
Yeah. And by not talking about it, that woman never would have reached out to you, or you never would have been able to help or connect or feel worthy of what you're going through either.
Exactly.
What's it been like for people who have known you throughout this whole process?
Well, I think it's been interesting for them because I think that they didn't really know anything was wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
Especially like family. I think that it was, because I never went to my family being like, I have an eating disorder, I need help, I need in treatment, I need this. I fixed myself all by myself. Found a therapist all on my own. I was living in New York by myself. I was paying my own, my own rent. Like I did it all alone. But I think me being so vocal about it now, I think there's a lot of, well, we could have done better. We could have done more. Or, I think, trying to figure out like where it all stemmed from. I talk about like my acne and my body image issues that I had as a child. And, I think it can be tough for a parent to hear those things and be like, well, as a parent, I tried my best and I tried to protect my child and this is the end result. I think everybody has handled it extremely well. There's been no issues. I think it's a tough topic in general. It's a taboo topic. And for somebody like me to be so open and kind of not proud of it, but proud to talk about it and proud to say like, look, I struggled, like, I don't want you to struggle. So let me, learn from my mistakes. And then, I think friends have been completely supportive. Dating is interesting because, everyone I've dated has been completely supportive and totally fine about it. But I think I'm like, oh, I'm so flawed. And my flaws are so visible, in the public sphere that it's kind of scary to like meet new people. Because right off the bat, it's like, hi, I'm Dana. I have bulimia and I talk about vaginas and, I do this and I'm like, I'm a total feminist. And it can be really, off-putting to some people. And granted, those are not the people that I want to be dating or I want to be associating with, but it still is scary. And it still doesn't feel good to have somebody be like, well, she's too intense for me or she's too much for me. Because that brushes up against insecurities I've had since a child of being too much or being a bitch or being too like, yay, like just in your face. So, it's all just it's learning how much information to give someone up front. Sometimes I meet people and I'm like, hi, I'm Dana, and this is my entire story. And other times I'll meet, friends or whatever. And I'm like, it's too much, like this, it's too overwhelming to this person.
Yeah. Because everyone has the story. It's just yours is out there from the beginning. So it's like, you don't need to figure it out for some guys. They know it from the beginning. Exactly. But it's so funny because I think men, as much as women are kind of embracing this and becoming more feminist, I find personally that some men in particular are very intimidated by the strength of women sometimes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I mean, men hate the word feminist. They've even come out with the response of meninist. I mean, it is, empowered women are terrifying to some men. And I want to say to most men, actually, there are men who are total allies and are totally doing it correctly. But almost every man that I have met with, there's education that needs to happen. There's a dialogue that needs to happen. And I'm not saying that men don't struggle. Oh my God, look at the cover of GQ. Look at all of these body, look at the body images that men now have to, strive for. But I'm just saying, look, women struggle. Like, give us some empathy, give us some understanding. You're not a woman. You don't know what I go through. You don't know the fear and the anxiety I face every day when I leave my apartment and I walk by construction workers. I mean, it's just the weight that women carry. You can't understand it unless you're a woman. And I think we need more male allies that are just all an ally is just saying, teach me, I don't understand. Teach me, how can I help? And if helping is just lending a shoulder, then that's okay. I don't think that should be something you're scared of.
And I think the conversation about this for men and women is very different within our society. And that's something, when talking with men, do you find, are very men open to talking about this and admitting that they want to embrace this, or are they more shied away, or what's your experience with that?
It's all over the place. A lot of times I talk with men and they're very just open. They're just very all about learning and want to be educated. A lot of them know a lot about feminism too. What bothers me though is when I speak with men who talk about how much of a feminist they are, and then they start, bringing things up that are like body shaming, or they start talking, slut shaming someone, or they're saying, I have no empathy for this type of woman. And it's like, they're still pitting women against each other.
Mm-hmm.
without knowing that they're doing it. And so it sucks because we have a lot of people who say that they're allies, and I think they just say that they're allies to say that they're allies instead of really understanding what an ally is. And an ally really is like a person who's on your side and a person who it's okay to be wrong. You know, I'm not going to bite your head off if you're wrong. Just say, look, I was wrong, apologize, and learn. Like an ally is somebody that is open to being taught.
Mm-hmm.
And without having preconceived notions or without having a chip on their shoulder or too much pride. And I think that's a big fear that men have too, is that they're losing power,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and they are, and that should be okay, but it's not, you know. I mean, we have white cis men who are at the top of the table or at the top of the totem pole, and we have to make room for everybody. And that means equality for all. And equality for all, if this is the space that white men are at, equality for all means that they have to scrunch up a little bit and make more space.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like Solange's, you know, album, A Seat at the Table. Like it really, like we all deserve space at this table that is totally occupied by old white cis, you know, men at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And there has to be more room.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's interesting because a lot of times people they say they understand and they don't. And look, I'm not saying that I'm immune to it, because there's been thousands of times I thought I understood and I didn't. I'm not fat. I'm not a woman of color. I'm not trans. I'm not gay. I mean, there's all of these things that I'm not, where I have to go, okay, this notion that I had about this may not be correct. Let me be quiet and listen, you know, or let me use the platform that I have made that has all these followers and say, okay, here you go. Here's this platform. You have a voice in here now. And we need more spaces like that. And I think spaces like that also help educate men. You know, it's interesting, like on my Instagram, I can see who my followers are. I can see what percent is men, what percent is women. And I have like 20% male followers. And I think that is really good. Well, you know, I'd love 50-50. It's incredible that I have a 20% of men followers that aren't fighting me on stuff and that are listening and learning. And I think that that's amazing. And I think that's just a trend to come.
Yeah, that is amazing. I didn't think that number would be that high, actually.
Right?
I'm impressed. Yeah. And hopefully it'll keep equalizing a little bit more.
Exactly.
Why did you choose Do the Hotpants? Where did that name come from?
Yeah, it's funny. So back in San Francisco, I used to go to 60s soul nights all the time, and I DJ'd sometimes. And one of my favorite songs was the song Do the Hotpants. And so I used to wear like short shorts all the time to go out dancing, and I used to like dance on bars. And I mean, I was like, this was in college, but I had a lot of fun doing it. And so the nickname Hotpants kind of stuck around. So when I was starting my blog, I was like, what's a good name? And then I was like, oh, Do the Hotpants. Because not only is it like my nickname, it's like a throwback to San Francisco, but it also has something to do with fashion. You know, it's like short shorts. And it's like, you know, do the Hotpants. Like it sounds fun. As I got the eating disorder and as the blog became more body positive and less about fashion, Do the Hotpants has really kind of taken on its own name. And it sort of means like, do you? If you want to wear those hot pants, wear those hot pants. If you want to wear whatever you want, wear what you want. And it's become kind of like a phrase of like empowerment and body empowerment. So it's like, are you ready to do the hot pants? Like, do the hot pants.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I've had people ask me, but it's like, I love the evolution from start to where it's gone to now.
Yeah. And the meaning behind it all now as it's transformed. Where did MyBodyStory start? Like, how did you start that in terms of sharing all those?
I just was like, I had gotten to a point where I had done so much on the blog, and I really felt like, as far as advancing like where I was in my eating disorder, I felt that the blog didn't need to be all about me anymore. You know, while I love that I have a space that I can talk and I can share all of my stuff on, it didn't need to be Dana. And I was like, what can I do? So I thought, let me ask readers to submit pieces for the blog. and it started taking off and people were really, really interested in it. So I just thought, well, what's a good hashtag? And I thought MyBodyStory was great because I'm not looking for eating disorder stuff. I'm not looking for anything specific. I just want to know the story that you've had with your body, the relationship you've had with your body. And it doesn't have to end with, I love my body and things are perfect. Because you know what? Until we fight this system, like I said, until we really change the whole of society, you're not going to fully love your body. You just can't. Unless you sequester yourself in the woods, there's no possible way because you are bombarded with negativity constantly. Mm-hmm. But we can at least get to a point where we say, like, this is the story that I've had with my body. This is the history I've had with it. And this is where I'm at now. And I just want people to read it and feel like they're not alone and feel like there's a story on there that they can relate to. And so I started featuring short forms on my Instagram and I feature longer articles on the blog. And it really, like, it's been so rewarding, just allowing people a space to speak.
Yeah. What have you learned from people's My Body stories?
Oh my God. I mean, I've learned a lot. I've learned that, you know, I've had some men write in and I was like, it really made me understand what men go through. Mm-hmm. It also has made me realize that I'm not alone in what I've been going through. It also made me realize that I don't have it that bad. You know, that, yeah, okay, look, I've had a rough life. I've had a lot of things happen. I've had traumas. I've had this and that. But some of the things that women have written, I'm just like, I've been very blessed. I've been very blessed that I don't experience that. And so to allow women to release the shame that they're holding on to with those stories it's like, you know, doing not free work. What is it where you go and you give your time, like a donation or something?
Yeah.
But
yeah,
like that's what it feels like. It feels like I'm donating my blog for women to feel better about themselves. Mm-hmm. And you know, if I have to pay for hosting and email and all that, like it's so worth it. It's been so rewarding.
Yeah. No, it is amazing. What are you most grateful about today?
Today, oh my goodness. You know, it's interesting you ask because I actually had not a great eating day today. I have been so busy. I'm planning an event in New York and I've been so busy just working on that I haven't been able to exercise like I usually do. And so, you know, I'm still very tied into my weight and my body. And while I've gotten so much better, I have moments where I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh, what is going on with all of this? Mm-hmm. So I haven't been able to exercise for the past couple days. And it has brought out bingy feelings and, craving sweets when I really should be eating a lot more fruits and vegetables. So I know you asked me what I'm grateful for, and I'm giving you a long runaround answer. I'm very grateful for my body, and I'm very grateful that while I can't exercise for these couple days, and while I ate too much peanut butter today, I'm still able to go run around and put together this event and meet with people, and I'm able to have this conversation with you. My mind works. Everything is functioning correctly, whether I hit the gym today or not. So I'm very grateful for that. I'm also grateful that people trust me and that people have opted to be a part of the community that I've created. Because I know that I can be really intense and I can say some crazy things that may not always be correct, but my followers will either correct me politely or they will just go along with it and be like, we know her, the grand scheme of her message is on point. So I'm very blessed to have the community that I have, created, and the community that trusts me, because there's so many moments that I really need them. Like even today, I'll probably post something and be like, I'm not feeling great about my body. And I know that they'll come out in droves in support of me and also letting me know that I'm not alone. And that's invaluable.
Yeah, it's a game changer. It changes everything.
Absolutely.
When are you happiest nowadays? When do you really come alive in your life?
I really come alive when I'm working on projects to bring women together. Mm-hmm. When I've been doing a lot of networking lately with women entrepreneurs in New York City, especially working with women. I've been working with some lingerie brands as well as some condom brands to promote women's health and women's sexuality. So I feel really alive when I'm taking really happy when I'm taking what I've learned and helping other women apply it to, grander things like, condoms and like women, women's sexual health, which are huge because that's all about body positivity.
Yeah. And something that we've never been able to talk about really before.
Exactly. And I think, I'm also really happiest when I can like yell something controversial from the rooftops.
Yeah.
I really, I like pushing the buttons. I like saying those things that I think a lot of women are terrified to say.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean I'm better than them. That doesn't mean anything. All that means is just that I have a different type of personality and that I have listened to other women, and I'm happy to speak for women who are too scared to do so, or are too traumatized to do so, or are just in situations where they really can't speak up.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes me happiest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm so excited. What's your definition of perfectly imperfect?
Perfectly imperfect. I think me right now.
Yeah.
I think like my definition, if somebody was like, what's perfectly imperfect? I would be like, everyone.
Mm-hmm.
You, me, every single person right now is there. Yeah. Because I am so far from perfect. I mean, last night I was like feeling really down about this event. I had asked somebody to be a sponsor and they were unable to do it. And I was just like, well, there goes, the whole event's canceled. Like I can't do it. And it's like, that is a perfectly imperfect world. I'm putting together this perfect event. Not everything's going to fall into place. Mm-hmm. My body, I'm trying to have it be as perfect as possible, but it's totally not perfect. I'm broken out. I just ate a bunch of peanut butter. Like there's things that are never going to be perfect. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just understanding, that I don't know. I just think that they're really perfect. Perfection just doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. And I don't know where we got this notion that something can even be perfect, because nothing is perfect. Oh, just peel back a single layer,
Mm-hmm. And I think that's perfection, is what you just said. We'll say.
Perfectly perfect.
Yes, beautiful. What's your definition of powerfully passionate?
Powerfully passionate. Well, I think everybody is passionate about something. Mm-hmm. I think to have the power and the confidence to do it and go forward with it, and that it's so, and like I said earlier, like exposing yourself, it's so scary. And so I think, you're not going to be there in the beginning, but it's going to take steps to get to that point. Mm-hmm. And I think that could be a goal that we all have, is to be there to where we really can be passionate about our projects, but powerful enough to like speak up about them and have people hear us. Mm-hmm. Which is where I'm getting now, which is, when I started the blog, I was totally not there, but a goal of mine was to be like, I don't want to live with these, secrets anymore and this shame anymore. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's, I think we're all powerful, and I don't think anybody gives themselves enough credit.
Mm-hmm. What would Dana from 7 years ago think of Dana today?
Oh, I think she'd be so proud of me.
Yeah.
I really do. Oh, yeah, I really do. Yeah, a couple days ago I was sitting at home. Actually, it was this weekend. I was sitting at home and I just was like, I'm really proud of myself. I'm really proud of how far I've come. And I know that, tomorrow I'm not going to be feeling this way, but I really just, the fact that I can be so open about my insecurities when I used to stay home from school when my skin was broken out. I mean, I used to cry because, I remember my first boyfriend in middle school broke up with me because of my acne. Like the fact that I can talk about this, mm-hmm. and I'm not so ashamed about it anymore. I mean, I don't know. I've done a lot of work. I've done so much work on myself. I've done so much self-help. I've done so much therapy. I've so much reading, so much community-based stuff that it's like, I deserve where I am now, and I deserve to be happy. And I'm really proud of myself for doing all this hard work. Mm-hmm. And the hard work is so not done. It is, I'm so far away from where I, want to be, but I think that'll be a goal I'm always going to be chasing.
Yeah. And I think it's only going to get better from here is basically how it's going to go.
Yeah. But, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I think, it's going to get really good. And then I think the step back is it's brushing up with my insecurities. Yeah. And I think it's always fighting those inner demons and that inner voice that says you're not good enough, you're too bitchy, you're too all these things. And so that's where I get the 1 step back. But even that 1 step back, I'm still more advanced than I was a year ago. So I just always have to hold on to where I am now compared to where I used to be.
Yeah. It's going to be a roller coaster, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's been a roller coaster, and doesn't feel like it's slowing down at all.
Yeah. What's next for you? What's
Yeah, so
what's dreams, or what does Dana want to do? Or I know short term, but long term even.
So, I mean, the short term, I'm doing this event and definitely creating like the safe space I have online. I want to kind of create it in person for women in New York, and hopefully beyond. I was thinking about doing chapters in different cities. I'm getting way ahead of, I'm still just trying to plan the first event.
Yeah.
But I would really like to do something where I go to schools and I speak to girls and boys too, about body image, about feminism, almost like, kind of like an intro 101 to why you hate your body. Because I wish that somebody came to my school when I was younger and said, let's talk about zits. And I know you all have them, even though every single one of you is sitting there going, oh my God, don't talk about me. I'm so ashamed. To everything I wish that I had when I was going through the worst of my things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whether it's speaking to children at schools, whether it's creating a women's empowerment group, whether it's speaking to someone else that has an eating disorder, whether it's learning about racism issues and sexism issues and feminism issues. Like I just want to do what I wish I had, and I want to create the tools I wish I had for other women who need them. Mm-hmm. Because I think that's the best you can do with like all the knowledge that you've gained, is to somehow pass it on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think everything you've been through, it's for a reason. And now you're doing all the things because of what you've been through. So if you can be there for one person who was like the old Dana, that can change their world, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And and it's crazy because there are, I think there might even be millions of women in the world who are like the old Dana. And it is heartbreaking, but it's also like, okay, all right, there's change to be done. There's work to do.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I have a couple of wrap-up questions. One being, of course, what's the best way for listeners to get in touch with you? I know your Instagram platform is huge, but yeah, can you just tell us where you hang out?
Yeah, well, where I hang out. I hang out in front of my computer at home, in bed, on my phone. Yeah. So, if anybody wants to reach me, I love speaking with people. I love emailing people. I love having coffee with people and learning. But you can reach me. So my Instagram's at Do The Hotpants. My website is www.dothehotpants.com. All of my social media is at Do The Hotpants. My email is HP, which stands for Hot Pants, at dothehotpants.com. I mean, it literally is like, it's like overwhelming amount of hot pants, but, and if you live in New York, like reach out to me. I'd love to meet up. I'd love to meet for coffee. I'd love to email with people. If you have a story, I want to share your story on the blog. I want to feature you on my Instagram. I want everyone to feel like their stories are valid and their stories are normal, because they are.
There's no such thing as too much hot pants. So I love that.
Exactly. It's like hot pants to the max.
Hot pants, everything hot pants. Just Google hot pants and it's like all over there.
I mean, really, actually funny enough, when I first started my blog, my dad, he's a real estate agent, but he had to his company was blocking my website as like a porn site. So he had to email the management or HR and be like, can you unblock dothehotpants.com? It's my daughter's blog.
Yeah.
And that's not the first person that's had to do it. Like,
oh my God, that's hilarious. That's amazing. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll have all the links for all the listeners on my website and under the Instagram and everything for people to get in touch with you. Before I ask the last question, I want to take a second and acknowledge you and thank you, Dana, for being the voice that you are for so many women, for being so angry and shouting from the rooftops and being so fiery and passionate and refusing to settle and refusing to stop, and for being the outlet and the platform and the voice for so many women who are struggling with what you want. And I'm serious because I love how passionate you are and how much you're going to change this world and how you're refusing to accept no in all that you're doing. I am so excited for you.
Oh my God. I'm literally like, I don't know if you guys can see, I'm like, I'm up right now. I needed to hear that today. That really means a lot. Thank you.
No. Well, thank you for sharing your story. And I know you're more comfortable obviously now than you were when you started, but it is very inspiring for people and for women like me or anyone who's been struggling through things to hear what you've been through.
Thank you.
Yeah. And the last question I want to ask you is, For anyone who's an Earth girl and that's someone who's struggling through something or finding things difficult or feeling like they're alone, what do you want women to take away from your story and what you've been through?
Oh my God, you're not alone. I mean, I know that, like, look, I know what it feels like to hate your body. I know what it feels like to feel like nobody loves you and to feel totally unworthy, and that you don't deserve the things that you have in life. Like, I know what it feels like. I have been there. I have lived it, but I'm also not the only one who's lived it. Like, talk to your friend. She has lived it too. Talk to your mom. She has lived it too. Talk to anyone you know, and they have lived that same experience. And what I want is for women to realize we all feel like shit all the time. So how can we not feel like shit all the time? Because once, I think, if every woman woke up to this feeling and, one morning said, I'm not going to feel like shit, and neither should any other woman, can you imagine how much we would change the world? Can you imagine what the world would look like if we all on one day decided we're not going to buy magazines, we're not going to buy beauty products anymore, we're not going to wax our legs? Like, I mean, I know it sounds like, oh, it's too feminist, but really, if you look at the history of all these things, they all stem from patriarchy. They all stem from capitalism. And if we all just, woke up one day and we're like, we're not going to do this, the amount of brain space that we would have to change the world would be infinite. Mm-hmm. I mean, and that's what I want. That's my, ideal society. And that's what I'm going to work until the day I die. I'm going to work for that society. And all I want is for your readers to join me in it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And look, I'm not asking you to stop shaving your legs, because the society we live in tells us to do these things. And I know you're just one person, but anything you can do, even just being more awake about it and learning the history of things, I mean, is not only going to help you, but it's going to help the next generation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Dana. You've given me butterflies and chills, and so you're so passionate and you're so powerful. So thank you so much for sharing your story and all that you.
Thank you.
Don't stop.
All right. I hope I hear from you guys.
Yeah. Thanks so much for checking out this video. If you liked it, be sure to actually like below and subscribe for more. And let us know what you thought on Instagram. These stories are here to empower you to unearth yourself so you live powerfully passionate. So you embrace your imperfections and find purpose in your story. You are not alone. And together we can turn our struggles into our strengths. Until next time, 2 weeks. The world needs women who have come alive. Unearth yourself. The sky is the limit, Earth girls.